the stream must be really patient because we start at such random times.
Well, we had to wait for you to Google Death Pact.
That's right. That was important.
Okay.
Yeah. And
This should be fine.
of course, and I sort of tweeted about it 10 minutes before we would have started if we started on time. So, you know, I have to start Twitter specifically for that now. I mean, like I have to go log into Twitter because I'm never there for any other reason.
Nope.
All right. Recording. Everything's going.
Yeah, recording.
It's April 2nd, 2023, and welcome to episode 265 of the Retrocomputing Roundtable. The RCR is a podcast about retrocomputer news, nostalgia, collecting, and remembering how to podcast. I am Paul Hagstrom near Boston. I am joined by three other retrocomputing enthusiasts this week. We have Quinn from rural British Columbia.
Hello.
And it's Quinn Dunkey. And we have Quinn Dunkey from...
Yes.
Yeah.
That is my complete legal name.
Yeah. I'm setting myself up to do lots of fun editing already in minute one.
Yeah. I don't think you have to edit all that. This is fine.
Okay. Also joining us is Carrington Vanston from Toronto. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Check.
Yep. That and the free square is now taken care of.
I am the free square, baby.
Also joining us from near DC is Blake Patterson. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to be back. It's been a little while for me. But yep, doing well down here. Cold and breezy outside.
Yep. Yeah, the weather. The weather here cannot decide. It just oscillates. Between
Yeah, it was hot 2 days ago.
Yeah. We have this sort of routine where we go out and feed the local rabbits grapes. And we picked the time. Last night was nice because we picked a time, right as it began to torrentially rain. So that was nice, lightning and everything.
That sounds adorable, though. Feeding grapes to rabbits. That sounds.
It's surprising that they like it, but they do. Like it's not their native food, but yes.
Maybe it is for like Italian rabbits or something.
Right, exactly. Blake has become very fuzzy.
What's going on there, Blake?
There's a very mild haze to my camera, and I gave it a little buffing.
Blake's
now.
fogging the place up. He's really excited to be here.
Looks like I slathered a layer of Vaseline over the lens.
Got that 80s soft, sexy look.
That's right.
No idea.
For the viewers at home, Blake's camera was doing a weird thing, and then he's done 6 more things to it and made it worse every time.
Coming to you at basically icon resolution.
Exactly.
I'll quietly work on this one.
Hey, your ceiling has asteroids on it.
Oh, it does. Look at that.
Yeah, that's excellent.
And they're in the correct resolution right now.
Indeed. Yep, asteroids. So again,
I know they're
They glow in the
vectors, nerds. Don't at me. I know they're infinite resolution. I know how they work.
I am not experiencing infinite resolution at the moment.
No.
Yep.
Blake is joining us from a Quick Take 100.
I'm going to try to turn my video off. Can you do that as the controller? Can you kill my video, or can I kill my video? I guess I can.
Kick him completely.
Let's see.
That's what you
Remove
get.
from stream. Oh, okay.
Oh,
not
you
connected.
did.
Wow. All right. Careful what you wish for, I guess.
Okay.
I shall never be careful what I wish for.
I think we can
learn
probably
those
still
lessons.
hear you, Blake, though.
Explains a lot, actually.
Maybe not. Okay, well.
Don't mess with Paul is the early lesson of this episode.
Yeah,
That's right.
He's got the band hammer, clearly.
That's right. All right. Blake is fully gone now, but
So I'm closer to winning this tontine. Bring it back.
very nice. Very nice.
Full circle.
Yes. We have brought back the discussion we had before we went to YouTube, full circle.
Yes. For anyone wondering, we were learning about tontines before this because, well, actually, it's topical because we're going to talk about it in this show.
So I'm bringing it forward.
Yeah. So I think I will talk about what we're going to talk about for a second
Yes.
while we wait for Blake to return.
Why don't we podcast
Yeah,
since
seems
we're here? We got all
suitable.
dressed up.
So I guess what we've been doing over the past several episodes is kind of tying our topic to the episode title. So we're on episode 265, and 1965 would be the year that we would be covering. There are still some leftover things from 1964, but let's just start with 1965 because we can come back to 1964 whenever. It will still be in the past. So 1965 includes, I have a little list here of things that came up when I looked for 1965, and the first one I have here is Moore's Law. So Moore's Law, I guess, was itself actually sort of, I don't know, coined, named in 1965. So, and let's see, the observation was named after Gordon Moore, who in 1965 posited a doubling every year in the number of components per integrated circuit. So that seems like that's the origin. I think it evolved a bit after that, but
Yeah, it's worth stating that, yeah, what he originally said was the transistor density of integrated circuits would double every year, but people people migrated that to mean all sorts of things, like things are going to get twice as fast or twice as big or whatever. But the original Moore's Law was just transistor density, and that part of it was correct. And of course, sort of by extension, a lot of the other variations that people use ended up kind of being correct as well, because when the transistors are more dense, all that other stuff gets better too. But technically, it was that.
And Moore, if I'm not mistaken, he was co-founder of Intel. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe that's
yes.
correct.
And had a great name for a law like that too.
Yeah, good name for a law. Good law name.
yeah.
It's Moore.
I've also
of course.
spoiled one other fact about Moore's Law by sharing my screen, which is that also somewhat timely, Gordon Moore, Intel co-founder behind Moore's Law, dies at 94.
Gordon is no more.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh. Why do we invite him on the show?
Nobody knows.
Ugh.
You're gonna.
Where's it?
That's good. That almost knocked my camera blurry again.
Clearly, Paul banned the wrong
Yeah.
person.
So, yes. Anyway, but yeah, it was influential. We've all heard of it. I guess. Well, yeah. I mean, I guess it was sort of also somewhat inspirational, as well as, marginally correct. So.
It was remarkably prescient. Like that curve held for a really long time, like decades. I think it's recently we've fallen off that curve, but it was pretty remarkable how prescient that prediction was.
Let's see. What else? What else happened in 1965? The also listed in 1965 is the PDP-8. So, I think we've had PDPs before, even discussed here, but the PDP-8 is the one that I think of when I think of old PDPs. So, there it is. The original one, informally known as the Straight 8, was introduced on March 22nd, 1965. Has anyone used one here? I think I have a
No.
replica of one that I have yet to
PDP
build.
11, I think, is the earliest PDP I've used. Is this
Yeah,
the one that
same for
Earl
me.
has? Does Earl have this one or the PDP 11?
I thought it was the 11.
Could be. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah. I think that I'm pretty sure that my college had a PDP 8E, which was, at that point just mostly decorative. But I think Jack actually had mentioned that he had a chance to actually program it by flipping switches. So.
My assembly language professor had a PDP 11 in his office, and I was his TA, so I used to go in there and hang out with him and play with that thing. It was pretty cool.
Nice.
Like he wasn't like it wasn't his computer or anything. Like he just had it because he liked old computers. Also, no, it wasn't like his daily driver or anything.
Right.
I'm not that old.
Yeah, I think it would be fun. I do kind of wonder how much I would use such a thing if I had such a thing. I mean, it would be mostly decorative, I think, for me. Though they look nice
That would be
enough to
almost a good
decorative.
enough reason, though. Like it's
Yeah.
such great line of computer, like great looking
Yeah.
line of computers.
All the PDPs are really beautiful. They really are. Yeah, we've talked about this before, but there's a line when you go back far enough in history where the computers stop being interesting to just play with if you don't have a specific job to do with them, I think. Like once you can't just play games on them or something, like it gets a lot trickier to have fun with them, I feel like, because once you've, toggled in an LED blinking program a couple of times, well, then what do you do with it?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it is kind of fun to figure out how to do it, but then then what you have is an LED blinking program.
Yeah, like I can't imagine going into the retro room and playing with the PDP every weekend like you might do with an Apple or an Amiga or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I have run into. I've never actually used one of the machine of this class, but one of my little machines that I play with every now and again is a TI CC40, little portable, small sub laptop kind of thing. It has one line of I think it's like 33 or 28 characters, something like that, of text, and I write a little basic program, and then I'm running some kind of basic program on a 33 character display. It's like, well, yeah, I can't think of something I could do that is super interesting here. So I'm going to put this on the shelf until I do this again in 18 months. Yeah, but it's got to be rather more limited with a front toggle unit. Although didn't some of the, I don't know.
What I really like about the CC40 is this.
Mm-hmm.
I really like this fact about the CC40 that it lacks a way to store data permanently. So that makes it even better.
Yeah. Indeed. It's a little less portable when you. I guess right. You can't even hook a standard cassette tape. I mean, I think there was a bus, but it's one of those desktop extending buses. But so some of the early S100 machines, didn't they have? Like they would function as an S100 machine, like an MSI or something like that, and you could do all the things with the video card. But didn't they also have toggles as a default way to interact with it that you could do without a screen? Or am I wrong about that?
Yeah, I mean, like the MSI and the Altair both had front panels with toggles and LEDs. Yeah, so you could bootstrap them with the toggles the way that you used to.
I guess you're right. The 8080, yeah, it does have toggles, doesn't it? The MSI right on the front, standard. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, if you didn't have like an 8-inch floppy drive or some other way to boot it, then yeah, you had to toggle in a bootloader every time.
Or your British accent.
How quick people got at that
synthesizer.
I bet people got pretty quick at it and optimized it. I bet, like, talk about a motivation for learning to optimize your code. If you're flipping a switch for every bit, you're going to get real good at writing tight code.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Another thing that that came up when I looked at 1965 is the Olivetti 101, the Olivetti Programma 101, which I feel like we've talked about this at least sometime before, but it is a pretty wild looking machine. 1962, a personal computer. Here's the engineering team, I think, that put it together.
It's a very Italian-looking engineering team.
Yep. The challenge of making a PC in the 1960s. So this article is on pingdom.com that sort of goes through this history, but
it's a strange
cool
looking machine. It looks like a cash register. Like it's got the little.
It totally looks like a cash register. Yeah.
It's got like a small number pad and like a roll of thermal paper that's 3 inches wide.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Maybe a cash register and a big track merged. That little
right.
That little tank. It looks sort of like that thing as well. I don't know.
I wonder. I think this might have been the one that had a little sort of like the storage was on a little magnetic card of some kind.
There was a funny headline in that newspaper clipping further up. It just said "Computer sits on desk" or "fits on desk." That was
yes.
That was a big. It's a big enough deal for a headline. Computer sits on desk.
It's like one of those big tracks. As soon as you program it, it's going to start to go around the room.
Right. First thing it does is find stairs and go down them.
It's like, whoops, the web developer exposed his alt text, computer on desk, for the image.
Right.
Yeah.
let's see.
It's very stylish. The curves are style. It has there was design thought put into it.
Mm-hmm.
Curvy.
Yeah, there's
Italian.
there's a pretty cool little documentary called Programma 101 Memory of the Feature that is out there in a couple different places that sort of, I don't know, it's kind of like talking about, there it is, the little magnetic strip that stores the programs and things.
That's cool. So it's got like a magnetic card reader, and then the paper, and then the thermal paper for output, I guess. Is that the idea?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Interesting. I've never seen one of these before, I gotta say.
So it's kind of like a super compact, like ASR 33 then, I guess.
Yeah, it could be. Yes. Using the Olivetti Programma 101 by the pool.
That's great. People always wanted to use computers at the beach and by swimming pools. Like, that was such a dream.
I need my electronics to be close to water.
Yeah. Like every Apple IIc commercial had them sitting on the beach for some reason.
Yeah.
No, mate.
Commodore 64 by the pool. Guys living the dream, taking care of business.
Right.
Well,
Oh, in the bathtub.
Yes, this video is pretty excellent.
Yeah, this is not good podcasting, but we're having a good time watching this video, so everyone should go click on this video.
This video should not be missed. I'll be watching it immediately after this podcast.
There was a shot of a woman using this thing from the bathtub, which
Bubble bath.
should not be missed.
Bubble bath.
Yeah. I don't know if I can actually locate it, but it was what is the deal there?
Which, not for nothing, being in Italy, that probably would have been a 230 volt machine, which not something you want to be using from the bathtub. Just saying. Probably not well grounded either. They weren't too big on grounding things in the 60s.
I actually looked around a little bit for a longer version of this documentary, because it does feel like this is an excerpt of some kind, but I couldn't find it. So
this looks like clips from company promotional material or something. Probably like a film strip or something that would have been.
I think we're going to definitely need to find that full documentary.
Yeah, if anybody knows how to find it, definitely let us know. Programma 101 Memory of the Future. All I've found is somewhere between like 3 and 5 minutes of it. So, but anyway, so it's a very pleasing thing. I have never even come close to seeing one in the wild, but it would be a cool thing to have, or at least to see. I think I'd rather just see it. But let's see what else. Another thing that came up in 1965, which I tried to find out more about, but okay. But then it seems like this was the only place that I could find it. It was a write-up of Project TACT, TACT, all capitals standing for something, no doubt, which was supposed to be the first computer dating system or whatever. So somebody saw someone doing something kind of like it at the World's Fair in 1964, where you filled out a questionnaire and it kind of matches you based on your answers with other questionnaire filler outers. So it was computerized, and I think it was Operation Match. And a year later, they had a prototype they called Project TACT, and it was stood for Technical Automated Compatibility Testing. So New York City's first computer dating service. And interestingly, I don't know where they found the information to write this article, but I could find no other information but this article. So I thought it was amusing, at least. And that's it. That's the end of what I have to say about this. Okay, let's see. I had nothing else in 1965 on my list. Did anyone happen to discover other things? I'm sure other things happened, but recovering from 1964, maybe.
I see that I don't have a lot of details to share. I think we know the company pretty well, but it looks like 1965 is when Commodore Business Machines was founded. I think back then it was calculators and office devices like that. But yep, I did see that happened in 1965. So
I didn't know that.
notable.
Did they did they start making office furniture, or did they just happen to make office furniture at the same time as they were making calculators? Does anyone know? Because I thought they started out making furniture, like just filing cabinets and stuff, and then later got into calculators. But maybe those two things were in parallel. I don't know.
I
have no
don't
idea.
I don't actually know.
Because 65 would have been very early to be making calculators, like consumer desktop type calculators. Like I think that wouldn't have been till the early 70s when they would have been doing that. She says, unsure of anything.
It seems a little weird that they call themselves Commodore business machines.
Well,
If it was furniture.
Thought maybe it was just Commodore initially, but or Commodore
Well, I'm wondering if it
Business
was
or
something else and Commodore Business Machines was a subsidiary or something.
No, because I remember Commodore office furniture. Like in my school, we had filing cabinets that actually said Commodore on them, which I didn't understand at the time. But that doesn't mean that that's how they started. Maybe they were doing that in parallel with the calculators. But
Well, it looks like I'm just kind of scanning through here. It looks like in 1958, Tramiel and partner Cap created Commodore Portable Typewriter Limited in Toronto.
okay.
And so I guess it was Commodore Business Machines. I suppose it was an iteration.
Okay.
But
And they started out making adding machines, it sounds like. So that makes sense, like mechanical adding machines, which that would have been right for the late 50s and 60s because it's too early for desktop calculators. Like that would have been, we're still in vacuum tubes and relays there, kind of thing. So it's a little early. But yeah, that makes sense. If they started out as Commodore Business Machines, but they were making adding machines like IBM did, they started out making mechanical adders and collators and stuff.
Yeah, I'm skimming through some history here, too, and it looks like in the mid 60s, they bought out a big supplier for like Wilson Stationers, like to be an outlet for their typewriters, and also through that acquired a bunch of furniture distribution and stuff. And
Interesting. That's how that happened. Okay, cool.
This is, I think I vaguely knew this before, but this is quite Canada-centric for a while here. So
Ooh, go team!
That would, I guess that would explain.
Toronto.
I've never seen Commodore Furniture, but I could see why the Canadians among us might have.
Yeah, it was pretty popular, I think, in Canada because I saw a lot of it around.
I saw tons of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and like as a teenager, I only knew Commodore as a computer company. So when I saw like a Commodore filing cabinet in the math teacher's office at school, I was like, "What the heck? What? Why is that filing cabinet say Commodore on it?" That does because it had like the Chicken Lips logo and everything. Like it was, it sort of blew my teenage mind. I didn't understand it at all. Wasn't until much later I realized the whole history there. But
And as a kid, I was in Toronto, so I was like in Commodore Central, so I saw tons of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Toronto actually used to be called Commodore City. That was its original
Absolutely.
name. Little known fact.
Yeah,
Yeah,
true fact.
Commodore City.
You can have that.
that's right. There's nobody here to say otherwise.
Yeah, it's interesting. Tandy, started out making leather saddles. Like I believe they made horse saddles.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Tandy leather, yeah, long before. And
That's Coleco, right? Was something or other leather company, Connecticut Leather Company or something was what Coleco stood for.
And I think we periodically bring up the the IBM cheese slicer, that sort of stuff.
Yes,
from the early
that's right.
20s or whatever that is.
IBM cheese slicer. Yeah, I'd love have one of those. I would love to have a
Coleco
Commodore filing cabinet too. Actually, that would be an awesome weird artifact.
That would indeed. Didn't Coleco make
Curtis
those
in the
dolls?
chat says that Tandy Leather is still around.
Okay.
So,
Coleco, what was the dolls, the craze of dolls in the
Cabbage
1980s?
Patch, I think.
Yeah, that was
Is that what you're
Coleco also.
thinking?
Yes, Cabbage Patch. I believe Cabbage Patch Kids were Coleco as well.
Well, and Tandy Leather was separate from Radio Shack, and Radio Shack bought the company, right, just to like get their manufacturing and distribution to build computers as well, but then kept the leather company going. And then I guess apparently Tandy Leather's still around, so they outlived Radio Shack, which is sort of funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
I have not this actual calculator, but one of the Commodore calculators of this sort, where it's really just a desktop calculator that says Commodore on it. But it's pretty neat that it exists. I don't
It's
think
incredible
you
what some of the early calculators cost. Do you remember? Did you have it at the time, or
I did not.
was it?
I got it. I got it later because I thought it was amusing that it said Commodore on it.
Do you mean it's incredible what they cost now as collectible items, or what they cost back then?
Well, back then, I mean, there's a similar calculator to the one that is, being shown on screen for those that aren't watching the live stream. And like my sister, I remember I have a sister who's 20 years older than I am, and when she was in the 70s, I guess she was going into college, high school to college. My parents bought her a basic calculator. It looked, it had this standard functions, nothing scientific, and it had LED display, a little unit, segmented numbers, and I think it was several $100s at the time. They were fairly new. So I wonder what the early Commodore calculators cost at the time.
I think it was part of the plan, though, like the business plan, to make them cheap. I mean, so to make them affordable for
Calculators for the masses.
Yes, not the classes. Yeah, well, no, and Tramiel's whole thing was trying to defeat the Japanese because he was forever bitter that they undercut him in the calculator business. Basically, they forced him out of the calculator business because they were cheaper. And he made it his life's mission to undercut the Japanese from that moment on. That's all from the book On the Edge, the Commodore story, that book from several years ago. He had quite a fixation on besting the Japanese at things after that, which well outlasted the Japanese dominance of electronics. So it got pretty sad towards the end there. But also, Josh in the comments there corrected me. So Tandy bought Radio Shack, not the other way around.
Isn't that what we said?
No, I said Radio Shack bought Tandy. I thought, but yeah, it was for the distribution network apparently. So, and there's no one here to fact check either of us, so we'll just say Josh is right.
Yeah, sure. Well, Curtis agreed.
Oh, so. Sweet. That's unanimous then.
That's right. Okay, anyway, I think any other 1965 facts anyone wanted to bring up?
Nope.
I don't think so.
Okay. I have not kept up super well with the feedback, so I may not have a huge amount, but one thing that we got was that Sean pointed out that there was an article on the Xerox Alto appearing 50 years ago, this month being last month, mid-March. But so I guess we all know of the Alto as the thing that influenced.
See, that's the photo that changed everything for me, though, because I always knew about the Alto, but they only ever showed the stuff on top of the desk.
Exactly.
So you see, and you're like, this computer was a futuristic, amazing. And then one day, not that long ago, I think it was during an episode, something like, hey, what's that big refrigerator under the desk? Oh, I see. Completely changed it for me. I never realized it also had that thing. So, it's still impressive.
For anyone who doesn't know, the Alto is a mini computer. It's not a microcomputer. It does not have a discrete CPU, or it has a discrete CPU. So the CPU is made up of like 1,000 TTL chips on these giant boards, and that's what's in that box under the desk. So, it's no secret why it never really took off. Among its many marketplace flaws was that the mini computer segment was already dead by that time because CPUs existed.
Gotta admit, though, the photo we're looking at, I love the chair, I love the desk, I love the computer, I love even those little tape things, whatever they are. I want that whole thing. And it's a lefty. Look at the mouse on the left side. Crazy.
Oh, nice.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I had that chair actually.
Oh, yeah, that chair. That chair was sweet to me. I would have that chair today.
It was really comfortable. So my first, sort of related, my first official computer job was at Silicon Graphics in the early 90s. And we had an unused wing of the office, and there was one of those chairs sitting over there. And I asked the boss if I could take it home, and he said yes, and I did. And it was my programming home desk chair for like 15 years. One arm was awesome. Broken, but otherwise it was super comfortable, and it was an original like 70s whatever fancy chair.
Nice. I think Paul would agree with me. The only curious thing about this photo showing the Alto and the desk and the little container of there's a number of tapes, I guess, in their circular cases packs. That are sitting in.
We are told.
Disk packs, I guess, sitting in a cozy.
Maybe 8-inch discs.
Yeah, but they're rigid, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Yeah,
but
I think they're.
the only.
Go ahead.
Don't you think it's curious, Paul, that there's not a little adhesive Xerox logo sticker on the front of that disc box?
Right. Exactly.
We've earlier conversations having noticed that every time you see on eBay or something a disc box that had anything to do with an Apple, everyone, without exception, put a colored Apple logo sticker on the front of the box, and so that's been kind of a running joke. But no Xerox sticker on this.
It was actually kind of it was a sort of a smart move, I think, of Apple to include those stickers, because they just went on everything, So free advertising.
You still see it because you still get them with Macs, and so you see them on people's cars now. That's where people put them. So you see on their car windows, you see Apple stickers.
While we're talking about the Apple sticker on car windows, I'll add, because this was less than 2 hours ago that I had an experience with this. I have an Apple sticker, an old, the colored rainbow Apple sticker on my car window, and they keep it. I replace it. It fades every year or two. I replace it because it fades. And I went online and someone was talking about it, and someone said, what you should do is just take a brush and paint a little bit of UV resistant clear coat on it, and it'll just lock it. It'll never fade again. So I went out there 2 hours ago with a brush, and I had ordered the clear coat, and I brushed it right on, and I didn't quite realize the degree to which this clear coat is similar to turpentine. It melted the Apple sticker. It completely dissolved a slash through it. So whoever gave me the advice, so I now have this artistic sort of a flowing. It looks kind of Dolly-esque. And so
a Dolly apple,
in my goal to slightly protect and prolong the usability of this Apple sticker, I have completely destroyed it. So don't do that.
Ironic.
Speaking of Apple stickers on car windows, that was today.
Anyway. Pro tip: next time, just use car wax. Car wax is a UV protectant, so just rub some car wax on it. That will not melt anything.
Really?
Okay.
And if you want to preserve the melted look now, car wax now.
Yeah, exactly. Just car wax it, and it'll stay melted forever. Perfect.
Yeah, I should get some photos. Maybe I can sell them as some kind of artwork. We'll see. But yes, thank you for the tip, Quinn. I wish you had been the one that gave me that tip initially.
Well, and acetone will remove that sludgy mess from your window if necessary. Nail polish.
Yes, that probably is the next step. That probably is the next step. So. Yeah. Thank you.
By the way, on the screen, I have a photo from Ken Sheriff's blog of the of a disk pack being inserted into a reader.
Is that a Winchester Drive? Is that what that would be? I've never been exactly sure what those are, other than I know there's some kind of replaceable fixed hard disk system.
I do not know. Maybe the chat knows, but
I don't know why I ask these questions. Yeah.
I mean,
okay, so
it looks to me like it's a platter that is loose, basically.
Yeah. I guess the head just goes into a little slot at the side there.
Yeah, I think I've seen. So, I'm pretty sure I've seen like IBM related disk packs, which had more platters in them.
Yeah, the IBM one is the Winchester disk.
Yeah, where it's like 6 platters in one giant cartridge. Is that what those are?
There we go.
Oh, yeah, Go ahead. Yeah, I just Googled Winchester Drive, and that's what those are. What you guys said, the packs of like 5 or 6 disks in a giant spindle that you can remove. So it's like technically removable storage, but only nominally so because they're giant.
I remember I used to see those. Does anyone remember the mail order company from the 80s? InMac, INMAC.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I remember.
Sold discs, floppies, and printer supplies, printer sound enclosures, and they actually sold. And this is I was using them in 1985, and at that time they still were selling those 6-disc packs that you could buy them like the rigid discs for a great deal of money. But it was interesting to see. I've been meaning to track down one of those catalogs. That would be a trip down memory lane. I should do so.
Yeah, I think we had one of those IBM disk packs in my house for some reason. My mother was a systems programmer, and I don't know. I'm not sure what was on it. Maybe it was just discarded. I don't know why it was there. It probably was not. It probably was not just like there was probably some reason. There was probably something actually on it. It wasn't just a cool thing to keep or anything like that.
Just a decorative item. Yeah.
Yeah, my mother's
I
not
think-
that nostalgic about work.
Yeah, I think they made a lot of them because I remember seeing them around even as late as the 80s. You would go into like an old storeroom or something, and there'd be a couple of them in the corner, those big plastic drums with the handle on top. So they must have made a lot of them because they were kind of everywhere.
All right, let's see. I guess. Where were we? I think we were looking at. Oh, that's right. We were doing feedback, and that's it. That's good enough. I stole the other feedback for my own item, so so I guess we could turn to the items of interest in news. And Blake, you can start.
Okay. I was just let's see. One of the news items that I became aware of was a few days ago. Israeli computer scientist Jacob Ziv passed away. He was the co-founder of the LZW, the Lempel-Ziv compression that's used in GIFs, PNG, MP3s, a number of other types of and I think actually there are direct LZW compressors similar to zip or that sort of thing, and the algorithm was used in a number of different capacities, but he actually passed away a few days ago, and it was only about 4 weeks prior that the other half, Abraham Lempel, passed away. He was the other half of that situation. And then LZW compression had an additional. There was a gentleman by the name of Welch, and I'm not sure if he's still with us. But what I was looking at was focusing on the LZ algorithms. Anyway, the Association of Computing Machinery said of marking his passing that I'll just quote, the impact of Professors Lempel and Ziv's work is so immense that current research in the field is still vibrant as it was decades ago, and every year we see more theoretical and practical researchers working on the expansion and development of the elegant idea that the two presented. It's not an exaggeration to say that the compression technologies that emerged from the research of Lempel and Ziv have accelerated mobile computing and multimedia applications and made them economically viable. So thought that was worth noting. So there.
I still use
saved a lot
LZW
of us.
stuff every day at work because of I do a lot of print production and TIFFs. It's still the standard rather than zip stuff.
TIFFs or LZW? I didn't know that.
Yep. Well, they don't have to be, but they could be instead giant files. So, but the standard is they'll be compressed to LZW.
Yeah, and actually, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say now is the time where we can say before the show we were joking that LZ and W were in a tontine, and Welsh has now won. For anyone who might not know, a tontine is a death pact wherein the last person in a group to be alive wins some sort of prize that the group had obtained. There's a Simpsons episode where Grandpa Simpson is in a tontine with Nazi gold, and now they're illegal because people kept killing each other. So that was the joke.
Yep.
Definitely worth waiting for.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Unfortunately, their tontine had the prize keep getting compressed, so it's actually smaller than when they started. It was really not worth killing everybody. Oh well.
Ouch. Yes.
All right. Partial credit for that one, Carrington. That's decent.
Clawing my way back on this show.
That was, you had nowhere to go but up from the Moore joke, so I'll allow that one.
And I kind of misrepresented, I guess. I was saying there is, I know on the Amiga, we used LZH compression a lot, which was one sort that used this. But I spoke as if it was a competitor. Zip itself uses the LZ compression algorithm. So people are using that daily, certainly.
Yeah. I don't think I realized that Zip was LZW underneath. That's cool.
Apparently, in some capacity, I think there was, LZ77, LZ79, different levels, but at some part of what they had created is in there apparently. So interesting.
Cool. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Zip as a container Zip is a container that can have a number of different choices of compression. I think it's sort of on a file by file level.
Got it.
But yeah, I remember there was some reason I was trying to figure out how to parse a zip file, and in fact, I think I was trying to get like an Apple II to read a zip file, and it could have there's like if it was compressed in the one particular way, it could undo it, but it had to be in that way. So
That I am reminded of TIFF, actually, going back to what Carrington said. I tried to write a TIFF parser once on the Mac, and it's one of those things where you think, oh, how hard could it be? And then you look up the standard, and oh my gosh, like it's megabytes and megabytes of header that are potentially there, and you have to be able to parse all of it in order to open all possible TIFF files. And yeah, so I gave up. But it sounds like Zip is the same way. It's a more of a meta standard, almost like a meta container than an actual self-contained algorithm.
yeah. Though I mean, it does what it needs to do in that it sort of like picks the best of the options.
Got it.
For whatever thing it's trying to compress. So
That makes sense. That's cool.
right.
I've been dealing with meta containers lately because it's kind of a retro thing. Adobe this year dropped support for Type 1 fonts. So
Right.
if you deal with like old fonts, have a lot of legacy stuff. It's mostly people who have like a lot of my clients got fonts made like for their logo and stuff, and it's Type 1. And it's like, nope, doesn't work in anything anymore. Too bad for you, old things. So like converting things over. And what we've run into that I didn't realize, like, for years the competitors were TrueType and then OpenType. And I kind of thought of them as interchangeable. OpenType is just like if you have more options, more kerning and stuff. But turns out OpenType is also like a suitcase. It can contain almost anything, including Type 1 fonts. And that came as a big surprise. A whole bunch of OpenType fonts are actually Type 1 fonts just in a suitcase calling themselves OpenType. Like, oh, all those don't work too. Cool. So,
Wow.
A lot of font conversion in the last couple of months.
Wow.
Formats have lied to us all these years.
Yes.
All
PDF
these
started
things-
it.
Yeah, all these things we thought were formats are just containers.
All right. Carrington, you have the next thing.
I do. Cool. Go me. What am I talking about? Oh, I'm talking about this. Oh, it's my screen. Look, it's my mouse. It's moving. Amazing. So this is a thing called Infinite Mac, which is kind of cool. So it is essentially every version of the classic Mac OS in a one-click button to run in a browser. So if you want to play around with stuff, so here's like all the System 5s. And if you look, the neat thing, as you scroll through them, we start in System 2 and 3, and you can see the old beige color. And then as it moves into System 4, it's like, oh, now we've got the Platinum. That's a great little detail. And then it's System 6, and we go into System 7. Eventually, it's going to change again to be the different style. Where are they? Look, new monitor style as we get to Mac OS 9. So it's neat. So you can like pick one at random. You just click run. When you hover over them, it'll bring up a little customize button where you can pick, well, which machine is this supposed to be? And then you just click run and it runs. So one of the downsides to this is it's not otherwise customizable. And if we pick one, say here's System 608, one of my favorites, I just launch it, bingo, System 608 running in your browser. That's pretty cool. Has the Mac hard drive, also has what's called the Infinite hard drive, which will contain a bunch of things, productivity games. Mostly, let's face it, you want to play games. Downside is if this, and I got to hold down the mouse button while I do this, which is weird. We go to About the Finder. This is a 4 meg Mac. It's a Mac SE at the moment. So if I want to play a game, let's pick a good one. Let's pick Marathon. Marathon's great. Would Marathon run on this size Mac? No, it would not. There's not enough RAM. This happens in my, like with almost every game I tried to launch. So it's very annoying. Try to launch Snood. Oh, look, where's Snood? It's hidden behind Snood Edit. You got to understand how, but if I just choose get info on this, Snood wants 4 megs. Would that work? No, because it's a 4 meg Mac. What do I got? I got 3.3 megs left. So the downside of this thing has been configured with super minimal memory. But certain games, I think from memory, Prince of Persia would work on this. So if I just double click Prince of Persia, we should launch into Prince of Persia. And so it is actually I don't know if you can hear that, but it's super loud in my headphones. A very cool thing. Like you just got like instant access to playing classic Mac games online. Tons of stuff loaded up. Bingo, I'm playing on an SE. I'm now playing Prince of Persia. Like that's kind of neat for something that can just launch with no configuration, no anything. So you gotta be a little choosy with the games you want to play. Let's have them just drop down. Ha! But I like it. I think it's a really neat setup. So it's called Infinite Mac, just available at infinitemac.org. If you want to play some old System 5 or 6 or 7 or 9 games or 8, all the numbers, all the integers are available. Just one click to play them. Pretty cool.
So is there any way to get your own software into it at all? Like to read a disk image or anything? No?
That would be, if it could do that, I think that would be very close to replacing, any other alternative I had.
Yeah, because the reason I ask is because I can think of one use case for this, which is that it would be handy to be able to test something that you're building on every single Mac OS version. Like that's sort of the superpower here, is they've got every single subversion one click away. So if there was any way to make it launch your own software, that would be cool. But it sounds like maybe there isn't.
But it's neat. I found it a really neat project.
It is neat. That is neat.
Mostly because if you just want to play a thing or whatever, and you don't want to deal with configuration, downloading or whatever, it's even easier. It's even more friendly than using like Internet Archive stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, it reminds me a little bit. There is I don't actually know what the history of MiniVMac is. I think there was a VMac, but MiniVMac is the one that everyone is kind of aware of, I think. This one. It's quite good, actually. But it's,
Yeah, I use it all the time.
It's interesting how it's very self-contained in a way. Like it doesn't have a lot of external bells and whistles. If you want to interact with it, you like run a program in it and stuff like that. It just has like a special communication pathway. So this has been kind of the standard, and you can sort of configure it to be almost any kind of Mac. But I think nobody has heard anything from the guy who wrote it for probably like a couple of years now. And it's quite possible that this is done because the guy is not with us anymore. But nobody knows. And so I've been kind of worried about a bit for a while that, like if this project, I think the source code is available. So I think it could probably be.
Yes, it is. It's definitely available. Yeah. In fact, I think even the site talks about like, here's where to get the source code and how to compile it and stuff. So.
Yeah.
But this runs locally, this thing, as opposed to Infinite Mac, which runs right in your browser. Okay.
Yeah.
It's very fast and it's
slightly
extremely
more
small.
complicated. Yeah.
I didn't actually
Yeah,
know
I was
about this
always
when I've always used Basilisk when I needed an old Mac emulator. I actually didn't know about this one.
Mm-hmm. And that one is neither fast nor small.
No, Basilisk is very long in the tooth, but it does still work. I think I've used Sheep Shaver also. Is that I might be mixing that one up, but anyway,
that's right.
those old ones.
MiniVMac is my go-to one for System 6 stuff.
Now that I think about it, those older ones might have all been murdered by the 32-bit wall in Mac OS, because now 64-bit only software is allowed. So that killed a lot of this older stuff.
Oh yeah, and I've got MiniVMac on an older computer, so I don't even know if it would run on my current one.
Yeah, you might want to check it. If this guy has not recompiled it in 2 years, it may no longer run.
Yeah, new computers are of no use to me.
Right.
That's why I'm on the show.
There is a pretty active community around. I think both Basilisk 2 and Sheep Shaver. Basilisk 2 is I think the 68K line, and Sheep Shaver is I think PowerPC.
PowerPC.
Okay. Oh, that's
Sheep Shaver is the PowerPC one. Yeah, definitely.
That makes sense. Yeah, I always used Basilisk because I wanted to run my old stuff that I used to write on the 68K Mac. So that makes sense.
Right.
Okay.
But at the on I forget what it is, Immaculation, I think, or something like that. There's a site that where people are pretty on top of it, compiling new versions. It's compiled for the Apple Silicon and stuff.
Oh, that's good.
Nice. I know the 64-bit Mac OS situation killed me for Sweet 16, which is Eric Sheffy's got the GS emulator. And I actually went I downgraded my old MacBook Air so that I could still run it. But I know that he's actually he chimes in on IRC, which we'll actually get to a little later in the show. And he mentions he is in the progress of slowly rewriting that to be 64.
So what makes the GS so darn hard to emulate? because it seems like none of the emulators are amazing, or at least not accurate, right? Like it's just why is it so hard?
pretty
Yeah,
good.
so
Is it?
so the GS emulator scene is kind of a mess. They all kind of work. Like they're all pretty good, but none of them are perfect. None of them are as good as Virtual 2 is at emulating the 8 bits, for example. Like Virtual 2 is, as far as I can tell, darn near perfect. The problem with the GS is that it's a very complicated architecture, surprisingly. I actually talked to John Brooks about this quite a bit at Kansas Fest one year. And he was saying how there's a lot of very subtle timings in the way that shadow memory works and how some of the DMA stuff works that is all very difficult to get right. And some of it, people aren't even totally sure, I think, how it all, what is the correct behavior in all cases. So it's a complicated machine. It's difficult to emulate, and the demand for it is very, very low. There's like 50 people in the world who care about emulating a 2GS. So there's very little motivation or incentive, I think, for anyone to go to all the trouble of building such a complex emulator. And then, of course, you have to maintain it forever because macOS is such a moving target. So I think all of that is the challenge. But I mean, they all work, but they all have slightly different flaws. Like they all behave slightly differently on vertical blanking, for example. That was the one thing that I ran into where my 2GS game is that none of them, I'm not actually sure which one is correct, but they all behave differently on vertical blank. So you write a set of vertical blank code and the timing will be like 10 clock cycles or 100 clock cycles one way or the other on every emulator, and you're not sure which one's actually right. So I was using Sweet 16 for a long time, and then I ran my game on real hardware for the first time, and the VBL timing was way off. I had it running at 60 FPS, and it didn't run at 60 on the real hardware because the timing was off. So you have to be, if you're writing on an emulator on the GS, you have to be pretty conservative, basically, with all of your timings, because if you start pushing it right to the clock cycle on anything, on memory transfers or vertical blank or anything, it's probably going to be wrong on the real hardware. So that's what I learned the hard way there. But I did just boot up GS Plus, and that is 64-bit compatible. So GS Plus is my go-to nowadays. It's sitting on top of another emulator. I think it was built on Bernie to the rescue. I'm not sure about that. But anyway, GS Plus does work. That was being maintained for quite a while. I'm not sure what the current state of it is.
So you're liking that.
Somebody should just make a Mechanical Turk version. Just like point a video camera at somebody's actual GS, and for $10 an hour or whatever, somebody will sit there and go like, "What do you want me to type?" Okay, it's just code
GS by
through that
proxy.
person. Perfect emulation.
I'm pretty sure Sheppy's was also based on Bernie. What was that? Bernie to the rescue.
As I was saying it, I knew it was wrong. Thank you, Christopher, in the comments. GS Plus is built on Kegs. There's two major GS emulator engines, Kegs and Bernie. And yeah, Sweet 16 is Bernie, and GS Plus is built on Kegs. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Well, is Bernie the previous emulator that Eric Shepard had written himself? Because I know he started out, it was a BOS application to start.
Bernie.
It's the first one.
I'm not sure who wrote the original version, but Bernie was the OG GS emulator. Like it was the first one to ever exist. And for decades, it was the only one. And then Kegs came along later and kind of took over, I think, as the more consistently accurate one. But it's a bit of a mess out there, and none of them are on super active development. There's a couple of, like a GS Plus, I think, is still being poked at occasionally, but the current version I have is version 0.14, so that tells you about the state of it. But it works surprisingly well for what it is. Most of them will run, for example, most of them, as far as I know, Sweet 16 and GS Plus both run all the FTA demos, for example, which is a good, pretty acid test. However, none of them do the video timing exactly right. So the scrolling text in the border that the FTA Christmas demo does, none of it looks right. It's sort of readable on, I think, GS Plus, but it's not exactly right because you look at it on real hardware and you can actually read the text because the timing has to be cycle perfect for that effect.
Timing.
Yeah, it is literally cycle perfect for that text to work. And so none of them quite do that right, but they all do show the effect scrolling by, so it's close, but just not quite perfect. So, and again, no disrespect to the people writing those emulators. It's a hard problem. So I certainly couldn't do better. We're lucky to have what we do on that machine.
Yeah, well, I do look forward to the coming redo that Sheppy's working on. That will be interesting to see.
Yeah, and Dagan was maintaining GS Plus for a little while. I don't know if he still is. He kind of took over ownership of that. He built some new build pipelines and stuff for it. He built a continuous integration system and stuff for it, but I don't know if he's still doing that or not.
Yeah, I think he very occasionally mentions having done something on it. So I think it's still somewhere in his field of vision.
Yeah. The thing that I actually really struggled with on all these emulators was just something basic, which is none of them mount disk images very cleanly. So the thing you really want when you're doing cross development in an emulator is like a one command line thing that you can launch that will load your disk image that you've just compiled in your editor, that like will boot your disk image, and then when you change that disk image, it will refresh that image in the emulator and run that version. None of the GS emulators that I have tried do that quite right. Sweet 16 did it most of the time correctly. It would notice when the disk image had changed. GS Plus used to do that correctly. The latest version no longer does. So you have to quit the emulator and reboot it to get your disk image to get refreshed. So it's just little things like that when you're doing cross development are really annoying because they add like 4 or 5 seconds to your iteration time, and it's kind of obnoxious. But at least they do boot very quickly, so it's not too bad. But I'd love it if someone came up with a really clean implementation of loading disk images in the emulators.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's see. I have the next thing. The next thing came from feedback that we got from Tony. Tony pointed it out to us. It's on retool.com, and it is basically sort of like a history of Visual Basic. The history and legacy of Visual Basic. It's a very fancy webpage. I don't actually have that much experience with Visual Basic, though. From sort of skimming over this, it's clear that much of the world does. I've done a little bit, I guess, but so it's sort of talking about like the projects that came before it, and sort of, getting the idea. I think sort of turning it into some kind of event-driven thing was somewhere in here. It said the idea came to him. There we go. Getting frustrated one night, firing rubber bands at my screen to help me think. Firing up a doobie, and that led to the realization that you could also fire an event. Anyway, and then it just sort of goes through the history of like how it came to be included in Windows, and sort of Bill Gates's sort of desire for everything to be basic, or like Bill Gates's large appreciation for basic, probably somewhat nostalgic.
Large appreciation for his basic royalties.
Maybe, yeah. But anyway, and then it talks
I really like the
about
aesthetic of this site.
The site is great, yeah. And if you
Yeah.
ever stray off the edge, it does weird little colors, and
Yeah, it's
wow.
super fun.
yeah.
That pattern is a quad tree for anyone who's interested. That's a spatial search optimization algorithm. That's
I see.
what's being rendered there.
Oh.
Used a lot in video games.
Anyway, yeah. So it's interesting to read. Because I don't have that much history with it. It does, it didn't connect with me personally that much. But it talks a little bit about how everything was going well up until VB6, and then somebody got the idea that it needed to be converted to .NET, and everything fell apart, or something like that. Microsoft unforced error is how that is described. But so, have any of you actually done any Visual Basic work?
I have not, but the people that love it really love it. Like I remember people going on and on about it back in the day.
Yeah, I got hired one time by one company to do the owner's son for the factory had written all the Visual Basic stuff, and then it was all full of errors and bug things. So they brought me in to basically fix it. And I sat down. I remember the first day looking at it, I'm like, I almost certainly am going to have to redo all this from scratch. I was trying to talk out of it because I had no experience with the operating system. I had no experience with visual. I didn't know anything. I was just a programmer. But I'm like, how hard can it be? But I was really like, I know I'm not going to understand any of this stuff, and it's going to take so long, and I'm going to want to charge you for all that time. And in the end, it took a ton of time, and I charged them for all of it, and they were very mad at me. So it's my one experience with Visual
That's
Basic.
about right.
My first web development professional position was mainly Lotus Notes Domino, that's a whole bag of pain. But there was a side project where I had the opportunity to work with Microsoft ASP. This is like in 1999, a year or two before it became .NET. And so the language, and I don't know if it's identical to Visual Basic, but the core language that we were using was called VB Script. And it was very similar to Visual Basic. Visual Basic Script, as far as I could tell, it was almost identical to Pascal. Like it was almost exactly, literally Pascal VB Script. And then there was another option. JScript was sort of a JavaScript alternative. But anyway, it was right before, I guess, their forced. How do they term it?
The unforced error.
The unforced error, yeah, because it was just called, we're doing VBScript and ASP, Active Server Pages, but there was no .NET anywhere in that name until about a year later. And then, yeah, everything changed. C# and all that.
I had totally forgotten about that. I did, in fact, work quite a bit for a while on an Active Server Pages installation. And
probably VB Script.
Yeah, so
right?
maybe I have in fact used Visual Basic and I didn't
remember.
remember.
Stuff.
It has to be close. I know it wasn't like because Visual Basic you could write standalone applications and all that they would run on the desktop. I don't think you could with VB Script, but it must have been the syntax must have been very similar. So yeah, but
that's what I remember was
JScript.
it was like. That was the only thing I did in that language, and that's really frustrating having like several different projects in several different languages. So like, all the stuff I knew how to do it in PHP, and I had to go like try to look up like how do I do that thing that I know how to do in this language in this other language, just for this one purpose, and then I will forget it. Next time I need to.
Right, always. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. Okay. We can move on, I guess. Quinn, you have the next thing.
I do. So, of course, we all grew up in the digital computer age, and so many of us might not think about or might not be aware of the fact that there was an entire generation of analog computing that came along before. And so what I want to talk about here is Ken Sheriff's blog, and he's doing a deep dive on the Globus, which is a Soviet spaceflight navigation computer. And this thing is an analog computer. And so analog computers within that subgroup came in two generations. There were the mechanical and then the electronic. So the electronic analog computers, some of us may, have seen where you program them with patch cables, and they're networks of RC circuitry and LC circuitry. That's resistor capacitor networks and inductor capacitor networks. Before that, however, there was a whole generation of mechanical analog computers. Where computation is done with gearing and cams. So Charles Babbage's difference engine, for example, you think about that. And we always think about that as a failure, but in fact, mechanical analog computing went on to have a long life. I think if you went looking for references to it, the most common one you'll find is U.S. Navy targeting computers on battleships and so on. They were mechanical for a very long time. And what's interesting about analog computing is that it's still better than digital computing at certain things, specifically really linear math intensive things. So differential calculus and linear algebra, polynomial systems, that type of thing. The reason that they are better at those things is because they are stateless. So computation is instant and continuous. You don't have to wait for something to be calculated, and resolution is infinite. So when you're doing like a cosine, let's say with a digital computer, it's always an approximation. However many bits you assign to it, there's an approximation there. And between values, you've always got a step function. You've always got, you're always rasterizing a continuous value into a number of discrete steps. Analog computers don't do that. They have infinite resolution. So you do a cosine, that cosine is represented by the position of a cam on a shaft, and that is infinite resolution. So for certain applications, it makes a lot of sense. And one of those the Soviets decided was space navigation. And so this thing, the Globus, is actually was used in the Soyuz. I don't know that it's still in use anywhere, but I'm showing on screen here for the stream the inside of this thing, which will blow your mind. The number of gears and cams and levers and things that are in there. It's pretty amazing. From the outside of this thing, it's incredible. It's literally a tiny globe like you would buy at a bookstore that is driven by gears. And it's sitting behind a crosshair on a glass screen, and it's showing the spacecraft's position above the Earth. And it shows various other useful data. It has an artificial horizon, and it shows the day-night cycle of the Earth so that they know when they're going to be in sun and shadow in the spacecraft and so on. And it does all of this with thousands and thousands of gears. And it's
beautiful.
Yeah.
Look at that globe. My gosh.
This machine is incredible. It really is. You have to see these pictures to believe them. And Ken is doing a very deep dive on this thing. He's got one of these things and he's tearing it down and going through every single function and how it all works. And I mean, mechanical computing is a whole rabbit hole you can go down if you want to know how you do math with gears. It's really quite fascinating. But this is probably the state of the art. I mean, I don't know that you could do much better than this in terms of sophistication for mechanical computing. And, the Soviets and then the Russians were navigating the Soyuz spacecraft with this thing until very recently. And so this thing is still perfectly relevant today as far as how it worked. And of course, being mechanical, it's immune to EMPs and it's immune to radiation and it's immune to cosmic rays and all the other things that plague digital computing in spacecraft. So, the ever pragmatic Russians, this thing made a lot of sense for a lot of reasons beyond just, the age of it. So, that's the mechanisms, how they solve various types of math problems with mechanical mechanisms is very interesting. And this thing has some of everything in it. So there are differentials, there are planetary gears, there are spiral cones with traveling nuts. There's all the different mechanical mechanisms that go into the different types of analog computing. This thing's got it all. So strong recommend to go through this, even if just to look at the pictures. If you're not interested in how it works, even just look at the pictures because it's pretty amazing.
I will never have a GPS nearly as cool as this
right?
anything ever.
Yeah.
I want one of these just on the dash of my car. Just like, oh my gosh, so amazing.
Yeah. It's quite delightful. One of the things I love about learning about old technology is that stuff is always more clever than you think it is. I think we tend to think of the current technology as being the cleverest. But when you go back in time, I mean, random example, I recently learned about how stereo is stored on LPs, on records. It's way more clever than you think it is. The way that they store, they store the left and right channel in a single groove, and they do it by using the left and right as both audio signals together, and then the bottom of the groove stores the stereo differential, between the difference between left and right. And the reason that's so clever is because that is then backward compatible and forward compatible with mono records and stereo and mono record players. So that was a very quick overview, but there's a video by Technology Connections that goes deep on that. But random example of how old technology is always more clever than you think it is. And this Globus is that in spades. I mean, this thing is just the complexity and the cleverness of this is really quite stunning. So that's that's it.
That's amazing. I think I had seen this article come by. I hadn't read it all, but yeah, this thing is pretty wild. And I did not know that about stereo records.
Yeah,
that's great.
Me neither. Yeah. It's one of those things I never thought about it. Like, wait, how do they store two signals in one groove, right? Like, wait, how did that work?
Well, I always thought it was actually just sort of like touching both sides or something like that, but yeah, that way is much better. Because the force of the rotation would want you to be up against one side.
Yeah. So that's the Globus, and it has the coolest name also possible of anything.
All right. Blake, you have the next thing.
Okay. So there's a there is a new game that was recently released for the Apple II. It's actually for the 2E, 2C, 2GS, the 128K, enhanced units. It's a double high-res game. It's a port of the
Impressive.
1990. Yeah, it's a nice looking game. It's particularly fun to play. It's a port of there's a game called Puyo Puyo, which was released apparently for the MSX2 system in 1991. And it is kind of a combination of Tetris and Dr. Mario. It's a Tetris-like game. You're matching colored blobs that fall and you position them. It's short and sweet and it's fun and it's nicely done in double high res. There's a little animation on character face, just nice little touches. So this was getting some attention and I downloaded it. It's created by, as far as I can tell, the only name I can find is the developer Trepung, Trepung. I don't know if that's a first name or a last name or a group, what he's calling his organization. Anyway, it's free. He has a website, it's sunbug.net, and you can download it. So I downloaded it, and I found I was not able to run it on my emulators. Work fine, but I couldn't run it on my Apple IIe. And this is kind of why I brought it here as a story, just because of the interesting little surrounding drama. It wouldn't run on my 128K enhanced 2E. And so I mentioned this in the Apple II Infinitum Slack channel. And so people were looking at it. And of course, very soon someone starts, disassembles the entire thing. And they're looking at the boot sector. Antoine, I think it was, found that it's using, in the boot sector, it's using undocumented opcodes that are 6502 specific. And it's just, there's some very strange things going on. He converted the boot sector into 6502 safe code that did the same thing and had me try it. It still wouldn't work. In the end, people were looking at the source. It's using its own sort of operating system and it's storing things in high memory, which is a little bit odd. There were a couple of hundred back and forth on the Slack channel. It was rather exciting over the course of 24 hours. And so there was a couple of versions out. We came down to the notion that I actually have a CFFA 3000, the floppy and disk emulator and volume mounter hardware on my system. And it looks like it could be to do with that. I actually have one also in my 2GS. It boots fine on my 2GS, but not from that device on the 2E. Anyways, so Cucumba comes in and he's indicated a plan to completely convert it to ProDOS and try to clean up the. There's a lot of undocumented. Right, there's undocumented.
The whole thing is now 4K.
Right,
and it's in total replay.
Some strange STZs. Like people were fascinated at some of the bizarre nature of some of the things that were happening. It looks like it may be the case that the person that ported this doesn't actually have hardware and might not have been part of the Apple II community to begin with. This was inferred by a number of things. So it's a very curious sort of thing that this came to exist, if in fact that is the situation of the developer. There's a Reddit thread tied about it where we're discussing it, and I've given feedback to see if the developer can kind of get sort of work through some of the issues that people are having with booting. But anyway, it's a really fun game and it looks really nice in double high res. And so yeah, I really want to play it on my 2E, and so I've been following it. So anyway, we'll put the link to the game. It has some weird glitchy sound, some clicking or something. So the developer released a no sound version as well that you can try. But it works great in emulators, and it works on a lot of Apple IIs that are 128K, but not all. And the configurations, again, it's not fully determined. What the situation is that's causing. It could be the CFFA, it could be something else. But Tetris-like, and for those in the live stream, I'm playing a little video showing some of the action, color matching, and people keep saying Dr. Mario. I've actually never played Dr. Mario. Does anyone know what Dr. Mario is like? And I assume it's something like
Yeah,
this.
it's basically this. You've got little pills that are one color on each half, and you're matching the colors. So I think it's identical in gameplay as this. Yeah.
But I've played this exact game though, the Puyo Puyo version. Never had the whatever you said it was on the MSX or whatever. So I think this was also just available on Game Boy.
Yeah, it was a popular type of game. I think it was on a lot of platforms. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it seems to be the case that whatever the original Puyo Puyo was, it debuted on MSX2, and I guess it was probably ported everywhere. So sure, but anyway, I'm interested following this because I want to play it on the 2E to my left, and it's fun.
Hooray
It's
for new
worth the
games.
download.
Yeah.
Yes,
It
and
looks
again,
great.
It'll probably end up on Total Recall, I guess. Well, Total Replay, we'll see. But yeah, so.
Speaking of that, I think the Tetris movie is out now. I haven't watched it, but
I think it is too. I haven't watched it yet either. But.
That was written by a Canadian. I just learned the screenplay for the Tetris movie. It's a Canadian guy.
perhaps on
It was his.
Commodore
It was his
typewriter.
first. Yeah, it was his first screenplay, and Carrington, you were commenting about how much it seemed like an international spy thriller, and it's because the guy wanted to write an international spy thriller, and he read the story of Tetris, and he was like, "I bet I can make an international spy thriller out of this." So that's why it's so like over the top, taking itself seriously, because that's literally what the guy wanted to write.
Cool.
And that was the license that he could get.
Oh,
so.
Canadians. What are you going to do about them?
Commodore
Right,
City.
Yep. So, Carrington, you have an extra thing about.
I do indeed. Just a really
video,
quick
yeah.
one. It's a snippet from a documentary from 1977. Documentary crew went inside a computer land, and I think I'm sharing. Am I sharing a window? Maybe I'm not sharing a window.
You are not, but
I
can.
can share a window.
Okay.
Share. You. Share. I'm sharing. And so it's kind of neat. And so this is a little snippet from that. And so while they were there filming at a computer land in 1977, a father and son were there looking at options for buying a home computer. And the dad was like, I don't know anything about computers, but my kid uses one at school. They have a terminal there, and he's all excited. And to watch this thing, I mean, it's absolutely worth seeing. So you see the kid sits down and starts typing a basic program, and the dad is just talking, saying, I'm looking at the screen. I have no idea what this kid's doing, but he types a bunch of things, and then a game comes out, and it is amazing. And the dad starts talking about how computers are an inaccessible, weird thing to be, but my son doesn't have these pre-notions, like having just grown up around tech, and he's younger, and he's like, fine, dive in, just start typing. And it's neat to see his reaction and to see the other bits behind the scenes in the store, and the kid tries to type the game and it's not quite working, and it's just, and then they bring over the computer line employees to see why isn't this loading, and it's a neat little snippet and a little time capsule, and this is all in a store in a computer land in 1977. So it's neat to look at what people are wearing, it's what he's typing, and then there's another video which we'll also link to in the show notes, which is a modern day interview with this same father and son. Went back and found them and talked about, like, did the kid go into computers because he was super computer whiz kid? It's like, nope. Then I discovered like other things and games and girls or whatever. No, but it's so, and I wonder, like, because I was this kid, like at this age,
right.
I looked like him. I had hair, I had that shirt, and I was super into computers. But then I never lost it. Like I just like what? So what made us on this podcast and the people in the chat? What made us be those people who latched on computers and then just like never let go? And what made kids like the little computer genius here go, nah, sports or, other things or whatever. So I wonder what was the thing that made some of us just be forever nerds and other people have lives. I don't know. But it's neat. If you were a kid like this will be a fun video to watch. Like you'll see a version of yourself in a computer land in 1977, typing on a computer while the adults say, you must be a genius. I don't understand what you're doing. Like it's lots of nostalgia here. Super fun to watch.
That's really cool.
Very cool.
So
Very cool.
I believe that I've seen that video. It claims that it was posted just recently. Yeah,
that's how I discovered
the
it.
original one.
Well, but I mean, it was filmed in 77, so it may have made
Right.
rounds earlier.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that I saw that, and there was an effort to try to find the people in it, like does it? Like, I remember the question coming up on maybe Reddit or somewhere, like, does anyone know who this kid is? Or are you this kid? Like, and it's cool to see that it was actually.
Yeah, they did find them. So
they
there's
found
now
them.
the second video is the father and son chatting about this, and the dad saying, "So, why didn't you go into computers? When I spent all that money on an Apple II for you, kid, what's up?"
Yeah, but it is cool to see just the original video and the stuff around the store, like the Apple poster on the wall, and and the ergonomic marvel that is standing at a desk typing on an Apple II, looking sideways at the monitor.
Exactly. So anyway, fun videos, definitely worth checking out.
You can find that sign on the wall on eBay for $1,000 now, I'm sure.
No doubt, yeah.
The father should have bought that instead of the computer. Better investment.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Blake, you also have a quick note.
Yeah, I had one quick one. Yeah, so h2central.com is a site that's been out for quite some time. It's had a number of different people behind it. Most recently, the noted Apple II figure Tony Diaz, who sadly passed away in 2021, was overseeing the site, and shortly thereafter it went offline. And so this is just a quick note from Ken Gagne of Juice.js periodical. He's brought it back up. He's overseeing. It's running on. So it's back up, and it has a number of a lot of content that we're glad to have back online. And I'll also note that, and I had noticed this happening before I read it in this announcement. There was an old IRC hangout for Apple II people hosted on under the domain A2Central. It was irc.a2central.com. And the A2C chat channel was, people would gather. This is where I learned everything about the aforementioned Sweet 16 update from Sheppy, Eric Shepard. And I guess a lot of people, many had not realized that it was sort of reset up on the Libera chat IRC network. And so when the site was brought up, there was some sort of a forwarding happening, so that if people that were attempting to connect to the old irc.a2central.com are now automatically dropped into the Libera network. And so I'd actually seen some people that I hadn't seen in a couple of years pop in, and whoa, here we are. And so that's been nice to see. So anyway, just a heads up on that. Nice to have that site back. And so that was just a quick one I wanted to pass along. So yep.
Excellent. All right. There is a part of the show notes that is at this point that is called upcoming show roundup, and one person added one thing to it. We haven't been keeping that up. Do you want to skip it, or do you want to try to use it? For those who are watching this on YouTube, Tandy Assembly is coming up. Maybe I'll okay. So the next thing we could talk about, just there are computer shows coming back and gatherings and that sort of thing, and we haven't really been covering them in any way at all, but we probably should start. However, our show notes does contain one link to one such show, which is the Tandy Assembly that's coming up September 29th to October 1st in 2023 in Springfield, Ohio, and that's at tandyassembly.com. And even though it's not in the show notes, I know that Kansas Fest is coming up in July, and registration just opened for that. That'd be kansasfest.org, I think. And
you're supposed to know.
Yeah. And so that one this year, that's actually being sort of split into two events. So the sort of sessions where people present things and get questions and that kind of stuff is a virtual event, like the past 2 years have been the weekend after the people gather in Kansas City. So the idea is that you can, if you want to go to Kansas City, you can do that, fix each other's computers, and then everyone, whether you're in the U.S. or Kansas City or wherever, can sort of participate in the sessions. So looking forward to that. I'm saying so much about that just because I'm involved in organizing at least the virtual part of that. But Any other shows that we should mention? I'm sure there are VCFs coming up. VCF East, I think I've seen some mention of in the.
Yeah, that's very, very soon in Wall, New
Yeah.
Jersey.
Yeah.
I'm afraid I don't know the exact date, but I need to get to that show at some point. I keep saying that every year. I'm close.
Me too. I've never been to a VCF, and I've always really wanted to. I watch videos of them after the fact, and it always makes me think I would have a lot of fun there.
Yeah, no, I think it is worth it. So, if you go to vcfed.org, I think you should be able to find information on these things. So, VCF East, April 14th, 15th, 16th. There is VCF Southwest, June 23rd to 25th. VCF Midwest, September 9th and 10th. And so, there are things to do and places to go. And maybe at some point we will start reporting on them more regularly. I would just hit that point in the show notes where I realized that we had a link there to talk about. So,
yeah.
In the chat, Curtis says that Randy Kindig is doing a show in Indianapolis coming up soon.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's neat.
I did not know either. Would that be about Atari, or what would that be? Sorry, Randy, we should know these things.
Yeah. Let's see.
Also, people should write in and tell us about these shows so we can talk about them.
Right. Yeah, right. I mean, I haven't personally been trying to follow
Maybe
those.
it's Floppy Days Live.
Oh, here we go. It's the Indie Classic Computer and Video Game Expo, April 29 to 30 in Indianapolis.
Okay,
So I can give a link to the show notes for that.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, and I think I feel like I have heard about that. That it's the video game part of it. It pulls in a lot of people. And Curtis in the chat says Coco Fest is coming up April 22nd and 23rd. And Josh in the chat
Another
says
event I always wanted to go to.
Yeah. Coco Fest is in the Chicago area. And then the Indie Vintage Computer Club will be April 29th and 30th. Not sure
Yeah, I think that's the same thing that I just said, the Indie Classic
the
Computer and Video Game
Indianapolis
Expo.
one.
Yeah, that's the official name of it. It's
And
great
for the
now.
one in for Coco Fest being in Chicago area, that is also a city with a lot of really amazing vintage arcades.
Yeah.
If you like old games, Chicago's a great city for that.
Chicago is awesome for a lot of reasons, but also that. It's a great city.
Excellent.
So it's nice that the live shows are coming back. Like for
Yeah.
years,
nice
we had nothing to talk about. So
We
all
can
the
do
stuff's
that
coming back.
again.
All right. Yep. And now a word from our sponsor. Okay, so the thing that's here has been here for a long time, but it's the Maniac Mansion thing. Does that Quinn? You have some connection to this? I think you
Didn't we already talk about that?
What is the
did. We
Maniac
talk about it
Mansion?
last time.
I think we did it last time.
Okay, if we did it last time, let's not do that.
I don't know what you're referring to.
It's a remake of Maniac Mansion, and maybe we did.
Yeah.
Maybe we did. Okay, so new plan. Somebody gave this idea to us in email, and so I will use this instead.
Oh, yeah, I saw this.
A thing about this, but
I ran across this earlier. I don't know much about it, but it looked interesting.
I'm gonna open a couple of links here, so I don't have to do it while recording.
Hurry up, the commercial's almost over. Is it like in hockey where there's a red light on?
Hopefully, yeah. I always wanted to get a kind of one of those talk timers that will give you like a green and then a yellow and then a red. But okay, I will share my screen and then start again. Where's the share button? Here. All right. And we're back. So the
What is this?
Retrocomputing gifts idea, yeah, it's It is the Unix pipe card game. It's a very weird idea. It is, but it's cheap. It's £5, or €5. And it's a card game for teaching kids how to combine Unix commands through pipes. And I mean, I guess there wasn't one before, so
I wonder
there
why.
was a need.
If I had a dime for every time a kid has asked me about this, let me tell you,
That's right.
finally someone made this product.
The game assumes that a parent knows the basic Unix commands: cat, grep, tail, head, wc, sort, and unique. If you can use JS Linux in a browser to sort of check your work, I guess. But so it's got a bunch of cards, and I actually have no idea how you play. But whoever the small so youngest player chooses one of two formats. Already it's age based. Whoever has the smallest pipe chain wins, or whoever has the largest pipe chains wins. I see, and then you have some tasks that you're supposed to complete with these, with your cards with the pipes and commands on them. It's pretty cool. It's no kid is going to want to get this for their birthday.
So it does actually look pretty neat. We were poking fun, but if you like programming board games like Robo Rally, those type of things, this would be up your alley. It's kind of a fun idea because Unix pipes are kind of puzzly in how you have to connect them together. So it's not a bad idea for a game, actually.
Be more fun than a regular expression game where everyone's like, I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
I just keep adding backslashes till it works. I don't know. Nobody knows how those work.
Yeah, I think if there were a hell, I think you would definitely be doing regular expressions there all the time, without your wall cheat sheet hanging on the wall. Yeah.
Anyway, this is from.
Wait, you use a cheat sheet? I just
punkx.org.
go online and find somebody else who's already made the one I need. I don't know who out there actually makes regular expressions, but I just take them.
Next time I need to do anything with regular expressions, I think I might just try Chat GPT.
Oh,
yes, no doubt that'll work great.
Will it just lie to you about one?
Yeah.
This one, actually, you don't need to spend €5 on it. It can also be printed yourself. So that's even cooler. Anyway, okay. So supporting it might not be too bad, but it's a neat idea. All right. Once you're done printing it yourself or supporting it, we can turn our attention to eBay. And Blake has the first of our auctions.
Yes. Okay. This is. I just have one. I found a. Looking around eBay, as one does, I found this item, a NewTek Model 6 music card reproduction. And so what this is, it is a sound card, an audio board for S100 bus computers. It is a remake. It appears, of an older unit that I suppose had some popularity. Looking nothing, the seller indicates looks nothing like the original, but it's functionally identical. There were some changes made, connection changes. It says it can reproduce music and sound effects. Applications include generating melodies, rhythm, sound effects, Morse code, touch tone systems. I guess really anything that beeps or boops you can do. The reason that I brought this is because actually it's $73.45. It looks like they were selling several. This is the last one. It's a modern device, modern remake, nice pretty deep blue board. But I've never owned an S100 machine, and I know only what I've seen in movies and read about. And I guess the only audio I've ever thought of or seen in connection with the S100 system was, of course, the speech synthesizer in war games on the he had a not an Altair, but it was the IMSI, I guess, that we talked about earlier, the 8080. Anyway, and it occurred to me I didn't. Pardon me. were you saying something, Paul? Something, Paul?
Oh, I was just agreeing with you.
Oh, okay. I thought you were correcting. I thought maybe I'd missed
I think
it.
we're lagged.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but it occurred to me, other than the war game speech synthesizer, I never thought about audio on S100 machines, and I guess I assumed, for whatever reason, that there wasn't anything other than I assumed that there was some sort of an on-off, like a clicker, but yeah. So I guess maybe there were a number of other audio options. Just I was curious if anyone else knew anything about S100. The state of their audio back then, music, that kind of thing. Was that something that people did often, or anyone? No. Yeah, I just had never thought about audio on that generation of
I don't know.
I
system.
know
So,
that was that generation. I know of machines that a common trick was to use AM radio frequencies to play
mhm,
sound on an adjacent radio using like
mhm.
tricks. That was the only way I know that people played sound out of them. There was a famous hack on the Altair that I think was published in some magazine where they had
Mhm.
oscillated the bus or whatever at some frequency that could be picked up on AM radio, and they made sound that way.
Interesting. Yeah, it struck
Yeah,
me
it's pretty
as
wild.
an
I
odd
think
notion.
there's a video that sort of shows this too happening. I
Okay.
know I've seen this.
But
I've seen the radio working before.
mhm, mhm. Okay. Well, if you want to, presumably this is a notch higher in quality than the radio interference music. You can plug this into your S100 system and go maybe write your own routines. Yeah. So anyway, caught my eye, and that's all I got from eBay today.
Excellent. One thing I might just mention while I'm here talking by myself is it seems like there's some kind of lag, at least between me and Blake. I don't know why, but so I'm being heard by Blake later than I'm speaking, and it's possible that I'm being heard by everybody later than I'm speaking, but we will try to push through it, I guess. Okay, and Carrington, you have the next ones.
I do indeed. I picked some buttons. The first one, I like the look of this thing. It's larger than you think, 2.5 inches, which is a big button, but MosTek Bite Wide. It's a weird 70s looking button, but it's from the 90s, or from the 80s rather. And it's it looks like a combination of a 6502 ad and a Rolling Stones poster. Big lips and teeth are chomping down on a but I just like it. It's, it's £4. It's a cheap little button, and I don't know MosTek Bite Wide though. I have no idea. Do those words mean things to other people? What the heck is Bite Wide?
No idea.
So I'm gonna guess it's RAM. That looks rammy to me. So it's a RAM button for £4. You can't go wrong. £4. Stick it on your scooter and your gold. All the 80s people. You're gonna make friends. It's like with a bag. Stick it on your bag. Make some friends. Bring back the friends. So Paul, when you purchase this, you're gonna have more friends than ever. I strongly suggest you purchase this button. It's gonna be a big part of your family going forward. The second button that Paul should purchase is this one, which I quite like. I've got Mnemonic Plague, which is pretty funny, I gotta say. So it's a Computer World button, and that's a phrase I wish I had written. I think it's very funny. A little more expensive at $9 US or $10 US, but come on, I've got Mnemonic Plague. That's good. You admit that's
great.
Good. You like it.
That's pretty good.
That's why Paul's going to buy that one too. It's very important for Paul to buy these buttons. So that's the second button I picked. Third button, I don't understand the story behind it. The third button is I confessed to Cringely. Now, I know Cringely is Robert X. Cringely, right? From InfoWorld.
Right.
But I don't understand what the confess to Cringely thing would be. Now, trying to find the details behind this, and somebody probably knows in the chat maybe, this same button is at the Computer History Museum. They have a version of it in nicer shape. The one on eBay, by the way, is $12.99. The most expensive of the buttons I'm trying to sell to Paul this time. So Paul, buy them all. Can't afford not to. Pennies a day. So the Computer History Museum has this one. the National Museum of American History has confessed to Cringely as, I guess, the button that you wear to force other people to buy the first button. I don't understand these buttons at all. So I guess I didn't read enough. I know Cringely and I know InfoWorld, but I don't understand this confession thing. So was that a big deal in the apparently 90s?
Was he?
Does anybody know?
So he was an interviewer on PBS, right? So was he maybe was he the Terry Gross of his day, like a famous interviewer that people would pour their hearts out to or something?
Okay, maybe. I knew him as an InfoWorld article writer. I didn't know him as
and the
anything
blog
else.
I Cringely later, didn't he have a yeah?
That's right. Yeah.
The Computer History Museum page said something about him being a PBS interviewer, or the button was made by PBS Studios or something. So that's what made me think of that.
Could it
One
be
of
a
those
different
pages that we
Cringely?
were on. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one here was
Oh.
apparently made by the Public Broadcasting Service.
Okay.
So maybe that's
Anyway, caught my eye because I know Cringely, and it's a computer button. It says 1997, but eBay lies. But I don't know. It's interesting. So Paul will find out eventually when you buy all these buttons, won't you, Paul? Won't you?
I'm sure.
You can let us know the type of crowd you attract when you put that on
Exactly.
your
Tell us about your new friends in 2 weeks.
Right.
Friends
Yeah, actually,
guaranteed, baby.
I've got no big one will attract great crowds.
Yes, anything about having a plague is always going to attract a lot of new friends.
especially nowadays.
It's punk
that
rock,
joke,
baby.
That joke has aged just fine. No worries about that at all.
Right.
Aged like milk.
All right. Let's see. What do I have? I have so the ones that I picked are fairly arbitrary, but I think we've talked about this one before, but it just came up. So this is a computer called Your Computer, and I just really like the name of the Your Computer. It is
So they can't stop you from just taking it out of the store. You're like, hey, hold on here, folks. Read the box.
It also looks very pleasing. It has nice green keys.
Those keys do not look pleasing. As an old Coco user, chiclet keys are not pleasing.
Looks
I
nice.
think
It wants
I
to
have
be
more
in
to
a-
look at.
Yeah, I like the way it looks.
I do like the
Looks like
green.
an
You don't
Intel-
see that color much in old computers.
Yeah, it's a good color.
Yeah, the green.
Yeah, they went their own
Looks
way.
like
I
an
like that.
Aquarius, doesn't it?
Yeah, actually, it does
Sort of
kind
like
of.
the Mattel.
It's got an
Also,
Aquarius.
the plastic has held up its whiteness in a way that you wouldn't think it would. I think this would
Oh,
be
yeah.
something that would yellow.
Maybe that means it's not fireproof.
Maybe.
Right.
That's what people say. I don't know if it's true, but people say it's the bromine or whatever, the fireproofing chemical in the plastic that makes it yellow. So maybe this thing
Oh, that
is
one photo made it look yellow. I wonder if it's just the
Ooh.
camera. The white balance is
auto white
mucking with us.
balance gets
Might
us
be.
again.
Yeah.
See, because now it's got the styrofoam to white balance on, so
Yeah.
now it looks yellow. There you go.
Nice try, eBay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think but I do think it kind of looks cute. I would probably use it about as much as I would use a ZX80.
Or PDP.
Or more.
Yeah. But anyway, this is it's not going for particularly cheap. This is $450 from Sci-Fi Man in Canada, Nova Scotia.
It is.
Oh, who's come up before?
Yeah.
It's demonstrated working though, which I like. He actually shows it connected to a display. That's rare. Usually, you don't get that with weird old computers.
Sci-Fi Man has the most interesting things.
Yeah.
Just the auctions this person lists are incredible.
Yeah, I don't know the story.
Paul,
but
is it secretly you? Are these
I
your
would
own
imagine.
auctions?
It is not, but I can
You
still
store all your stuff in Nova Scotia to try to fool us.
Right. Yeah, since the story I imagine is someone sort of like going through their collection and downsizing. So so it's somebody who it's clearly somebody who pretty much knows what these things are, as much as any of us do. So, all right, what next? Okay, so this is an auction. It's not actually live. I put it in here when we were preparing to record some time ago. It is a Sanyo MBC 550 PC clone. But the thing that struck me about it is that when you look at this, you think, this is a VCR.
I was thinking stereo equipment
Yeah.
or VCR, totally.
Yeah, totally.
But it is, in fact...
Looks like an amp.
Yeah, it's a Sanyo computer made to hide in your AV cabinet or whatever. Because it absolutely looks like something like a VCR or a DVD player, something like that.
Well, I'm sure that's where they got that case. Like it's from Sanyo, so I'm sure they just pulled a case off of their supply chain of VCRs or amplifiers or whatever.
Yeah. Very funny looking though. So anyway, I was mostly just struck by this, seeing this VCR show up in my computer search.
Why does that VCR have floppy drives in it?
Yeah. So, and you know, I'm sure there probably are Sanyo MBC 55, 550 enthusiasts out there, but anyway, I don't know anything more about it other than that. It powers on apparently. Okay. Let's see. This will be, I guess, the last one I'll mention. This is a vintage 1970 IBM Systems 360 RPG programming volume, and my note about that is that it sounds more fun than it is.
I would say, like, depends what you mean by RPG.
Yeah. Because I think that's just the name of the language. You know, it is not writing role-playing games on your mainframe. But
teenage me would have been very disappointed by that book.
Yeah.
Current me is disappointed.
I think part of the reason I had brought this up in the first place was that I think we were going to attribute it to 1964, the introduction of the IBM 360. So that is kind of in time with that. But anyway, whatever. All I have are joke items, I guess, this time around. There's one that's been sitting on this list of things that I would sometime use for a long time. So I'm going to do this one now. This is it has not sold. It's really seriously been in our show notes for probably 2 months.
The round Apple mouse.
Oh,
Yeah.
Which way is it pointing?
Yeah,
There's no way to know. Wiggle it and see. It's like a little game.
Yeah. And they
Have
actually don't
you
track all
seen
that well either.
there's things that clip onto them? I remember at the time you can get color matching plastic kind of chins that would go into that would make it a mouse that would be
Not
technically
symmetrical, yeah.
usable. Yeah. Round mouse, crazy. Yeah. Talk about. Sometimes somebody at Apple just is like, you know what I hate? I hate our users. I hate our users.
Exactly.
I will punish them.
This was the era where it was like, go home, Apple, you're drunk. Like this, what are you doing?
I mean, Apple has made a lot of bad mice, but this one is like, it's got to be intentional. This is somebody lost a bet.
Yeah.
Like, you can't make me pitch that to Steve. Hey, a bet's a bet, man.
Yeah, this was a new low for sure.
Yeah. And actually, the thing that led me to list it was that one of the things they talk about
it's
is
sticky
that it's
and
sticky. Yeah.
As if the mouse isn't bad enough on its own. Here's one that's been
Plastic is
dipped in
sticky.
syrup.
But part of the reason the thing is this, that's so true. I can totally feel what that feels like. I mean, like I know exactly what they're talking about. This stuff just becomes, it's like the plastic or something just becomes sticky. So anyway.
Well, I mean, I got to say, I mean, I remember that blue mouse. I had one on my blue and white G3. I used it for a couple of years, and I do remember those chins. I debated buying one, but arguably, I mean, there's almost as bad a situation on Apple's current mouse. The charging connector is on the bottom of the mouse. Like you cannot
see that
doesn't
doesn't bug me at all. Because the reality is it charges something 4 seconds. You're supposed to charge it when not there, so I get it because you're not supposed to use that mouse plugged in. And everyone would keep it plugged in. What bugs me about it though is I always, when I've used that mouse, I'm using one at the moment that I normally don't use, but it's the only mouse that was nearby, and so it has all the gestures you can swipe on and stuff, which is why I have occasionally dropped out of this because I will pet my mouse apparently and then just go, Chrome is like, I guess you want another tab, I'm out. And I just drop out of the show. Oh, Apple's mice, why do you hate me?
I had the best laugh I've had in a while at the fact that they described this thing as sticky. I'm fairly sure eBay Rule 101 is never buy anything that is described as sticky.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't say why it's sticky. There could be a lot of reasons, none of which you probably want to know.
Right.
Yeah. What's the best case scenario there? Right.
Here was nanoraptors.
That you are outbid. That's the best case scenario.
Yeah. Dana Sabera, Nanoraptor, had a take on the mouse connector on the bottom with the ADB mouse.
That's great.
For people just listening to the podcast, it's an old ADB mouse with the ADB connector on the bottom. That's delightful.
Yeah.
And for people who don't know, NanoRaptor on Twitter makes like mock-ups of fictional Apple products and like their Photoshops, and they're all
L-shaped monitors and stuff.
Yeah, they're all hilarious
Yeah,
and
extraordinary.
really clever and poking fun at Apple in a way that you have to be an Apple fan to sort of appreciate. But it's
Speaking of sticky, like the mouse balls in those old ADB mice, that's another thing where the
Oh, yeah.
material itself weirdly
Yeah.
gets a little tacky.
Weird rubber.
yeah, yeah, it would, yeah, they would collect cat hair and stuff, and yeah, it was hard to keep them clean.
Yeah. A couple of notes from the chat. RPG is report program generator, Mr. Allen says.
Not nearly as fun.
No, no.
No,
And Jeremy mentioned in the chat that the previous version of the mouse that had AAA batteries, you put them in both the same direction. And I remember just marveling at that. Like, why?
Yeah.
Why is this the first time that anyone has
That's
ever
right.
done that?
yeah. Yeah, it's I liked it. Like I liked that feature. It was clever, but yeah, the point is made that that's different than every other thing on the planet. So everyone probably did it wrong. But yeah, I appreciated it. I was like, yeah, why isn't everything like this? This is so much more pleasant than trying to like guess which one goes which way all the time.
That's right. All right. I think that's it. Quentin, you have one.
I do. I have an eBay item for once. I never have eBay items. Let me just share this here. So for reasons that will become clear in a few minutes, I've become obsessed with Commodore monitors, and I found kind of an interesting one. So this is in Canada, and it's actually a very good price. It is a Commodore 1901. So this is a monitor for the CBM PCs. And so it's actually a monochrome CGA monitor, but it's apparently pretty uncommon. Like I did some searching around, and these things, like you don't find them. I couldn't find any other version of these. So if you had a CBM PC and you needed a monitor for it, this would be the one, and you'd have trouble finding it otherwise. So it's got like a 5-pin DIN connector on the back of it, which apparently goes to the video port on a CBM PC. And it's apparently, as I said, CGA. So this thing's in flawless condition. He does not have the computer that goes with it, so I don't know why he has this thing. But does not work with any other Commodore. It's only a PC monitor. It's actually a rebranded. I think Philips actually made these, and this is just a rebranded unit. Yeah, it's kind of an odd artifact. And what's especially odd about it, if you're searching for one of these, it would be very difficult to find one because the Commodore 1901 nomenclature is actually overloaded. So there's a second monitor that's also the Commodore 1901, and that is the PAL version of the Commodore 1902. So the more common Commodore monitors came in the 1702, 1802, 1902 line, and those were all the NTSC versions, and there's a PAL version of each of those that's the 01 version. So there is a 1902 monitor, which is a very nice monitor. It's a sought-after one that works on Commodore 64, 128, and Amigas, and basically all the Commodores. It's got all kinds of ports on the back. And then the 1901 is the PAL version of that. So if you're searching for that very desirable 1901 PAL monitor, you're going to find this dumb thing. And if you have a CBM PC and you need this dumb thing, you're going to keep finding the other one. So the only way to distinguish them is the model number on the back is different. So as I said, I've learned way more than I wanted to about Commodore monitors in the last several months. So this one on the back says that it's type 75BM13. That's the actual model number. And that tells you that it's the CBM PC 1901 and not the other one, the PAL version of the color monitor. So anyway, there you go. Kind of an unusual item that I stumbled across. And that's I also liked that he labeled it uncommon and not rare. I appreciated that in the eBay listing.
It would be nice if there was some sort of a web resource that could show you a list of Commodore monitors that have been made.
Yeah. So
Someone
funny you
put
should mention
something like
that. Yeah.
together.
Funny.
So yeah, well, I guess we'll throw that link in the show notes. So Commodore monitors have been quite the topic of conversation over on the RCR Discord, because I've been begging for help from our Commodore experts in the group here. And I think it was Earl, or was it you, Blake, who posted that link? There's like a
Which just
Wikipedia
goes and
page.
goes and goes.
I think it
Yeah,
was
so there's a
Earl, yeah.
Wikipedia page that lists every Commodore monitor. And you think you know how many Commodore monitors there are. You are wrong. There are so many. There's like
It's
50
absurd.
Commodore monitors. It is absurd.
It's ridiculous how much.
They made 5 monitors for every computer they made, and Commodore made a lot of computers. So it's bananas how many there are, and trying to figure out like which ones have which ports, and which ones have support for digital and analog, and which ones have the chroma and luma separated, and which ones don't. And so this Wikipedia page, or this wiki like thing, is a gold mine if you're trying to sort out Commodore monitors. So yeah, definitely a great resource. We'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah, I have it up here. It's hosted at
You beat me to it.
macter.hu, marketed Commodore monitors, and it's it's low tech. We lost Quinn. Well, it's low tech. It's and you can sort of scroll through. We have the 1070 and the 1080 and 1081 and it keeps going. And the funny thing about this is it just keeps going. Like it just plain keeps going for almost
still
as long
going.
as you want. Yeah, if you can see the little thumb at the bottom. I'm still going. I'm about 50% through.
50%.
There are so many
Yeah.
Commodore monitors. You don't even know. You think you don't know. You haven't. You don't have the 1,000-yard Commodore monitor stare until you've looked at this wiki, and then tried to find a monitor for your Commodore.
It's like trying to contemplate eternity. Like your head gets wrapped up into a loop that it's insane. It's ridiculous. I don't. Yeah. It's really strange.
But beautiful. I was very pleased when Earl pointed that webpage out to us.
Yeah, that's a fantastic resource. I'm glad it exists, because
It's
I was
longer
really
than
struggling. Like I've been trying to buy a Commodore monitor, as we'll talk about in a minute, and I was really struggling to figure out what all these things are. So that webpage is a gold mine.
It's longer than a fully expanded TI 99.4 on a desktop.
That's right. And that's saying
And that's long.
All right, I think we made it through our eBay auctions. So we can go to closing discussions. And Blake, you have anything you wanted to talk about?
Well, I actually, Quinn mentioned the RCR Discord. It was there that I was swayed into purchasing a Naboo device, as everyone else has. The found lot of these. I'm sure we've talked about it multiple times on the show, but just it's the Z80 based network computer from Canada in the 80s. So I haven't actually. I've taken it out of the box to get the serial number, but I haven't done anything with it yet. But I look forward to there's so much happening with it out there that I'll quickly be able to get on board, and that'll be fun to play with. I guess I'm still hoping for more excitement surrounding the Puyo disassembly and reconstruction by Cucumba. So that's I've got my eye on that. But otherwise, just pretty much business as usual. So there we go.
Excellent. Carrington, what closing notes have you?
We talked about it before. I'd made a little game called Dorm, a little text adventure game, and Paul holds up his version. And April 1st is Interactive Fiction Source Code Amnesty Day, where the idea is everybody's embarrassed by your source code. Like it's just like, especially you make a first game or whatever, it's like it's terrible to show people. So everyone should release their source code on the exact same day. So it's like you don't draw attention to yourself. It's just like we all just put it out, and then you're among the cloud. So it's a way for all the text adventure people to put out their source code with the least amount of embarrassment and not draw attention to yourself. I have now drawn attention to myself, but I'm one of the people. I thought it was a great idea, so I stuck out the source code, the remarkably embarrassing source code for the game, and I stuck it up on IFDB, so I'll have a link to that. But the nice thing about it is, though, one, I'm sure people will find a billion bugs and fix them for me, which would be great. But people have been making other versions of the game, and so somebody wanted to make a single disc version for the Atari, and by getting the source code within like an hour, it was like, oh, here's the Atari version. So that's awesome. So that's the main reason to release stuff, is other people can do things with them. So that was super fun. So there's now an Atari version.
Is your game, the source code, is it like Z code, Z
Yeah.
file, the Z?
Yeah,
Okay,
I made it in a
yeah.
thing called Punion form, so it's just it's a Z3 file. Yeah. Oh, I mean, the Z3 file is the game, but then there's also another source code if you want. And then there's a pre-compiled versions for the Apple II, and people have made ones for the Sinclair and Amstrad and BBC Micro and a bunch of other things now.
Nice.
And
I
hopefully
was somehow
it's
unaware.
okay.
I'll go seek that out.
Quinn will make a Commodore version. Now she's the Commodore person among us.
I think someone already did. I think that came up in
Oh,
the
actually, yes, that's true.
episode
Right.
discussed thoroughly on Eaten by a Gru. I have thoroughly enjoyed that episode. That was fun to listen to.
Excellent.
Surely it'll soon end up on the Sam Coupe.
That doesn't exist. How can you put a game on a computer that never existed? That's crazy talk.
I like the idea of the Amnesty Day, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens when ChatGPT consumes that day.
Yeah.
But it's fun. Like experienced programmers did it as well. Like I'm just like put up my first game, but like Zarf, who made Hadean Lands, which is like one of the big current commercial titles for interactive fiction, also on the first released all the source code for that, which is like, so it's cool. A bunch of people got involved in it, so it was neat.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. I actually don't have that much by closing notes to add. Somehow it's been super busy since the last time we recorded, so I don't know. I haven't done anything with my Nabo yet either, and I've had it longer than Blake. I haven't even gotten the serial number, but I have. I guess that's not entirely true. I did. I think I mentioned this before, but I managed to chat with somebody in a chat room, across the internet. I connected it successfully to the world, and then having succeeded, I put it back away. So.
Yeah. I mean, it seemed like it was.
I love the keyboard though. It's nice to type on.
It seems like anyone that has any sort of retro computing bone in them, it seems like a pretty grievous missed opportunity. I mean, the cost of these things is like what, $80, $79.
Well, in the show though, the only two hosts of this show that don't have one are the Canadians. I think it's Quinn and I. All the rest of you pick one up. We're like, yeah, but it's the Canadian coupe.
Anyway, yeah,
we'll see.
So we'll see what happens. I still hoping to beef up the Gopher server, that sort of thing, but more sort of optimism for the future than things actually accomplished. So
let me ask you, what do you view the Gopher content with? What are you using as a client when you play with the Gopher server? Well,
there are. So when I'm using it here, there's something that I usually use called Lagrange, which is it's Gopher and something else. I forget. There's some slightly enhanced version of Gopher. Yeah, I don't know. I can't find it. But anyway, it allows for a little bit more than the Gopher protocol did. But that works pretty nicely on the Mac OS. I think 4AM has been working on one for the Apple II. Should I say that? Maybe I shouldn't say that. But there might be one. But I think there's one for the 2GS. Someone's been working on one for the 2GS, and I think it's obviously it exists on the Mac and the 68K Mac and stuff. So that's sort of the hope, is that we will have pages of something that people could browse to when they finally manage to get their Mac to boot after 3 days of trying.
And
Nice.
don't type brew install gopher on your modern Mac.
Yeah.
Carrington and I both did that, and it will spend
no.
2 hours installing a lot of stuff, none of which is gopher.
Right.
I don't know.
I wish
still
I had
am
to
not.
track down and delete that. I did that live on air, I think, and I was,
Yeah.
what am I doing?
I
How
did
can
too.
What's the worst that can happen?
Never brew
Okay,
install
thank you
blind.
for
I
that.
should have known better.
Thank you for that
still-
warning. I was gonna probably
No,
do
don't.
that.
Usually
that's
it's safe. I've just blindly brew installed a bunch of things, but that was an error. I should not have done that.
This is where there's some kind of Caddyshack reference or something like that.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, the one for the 2GS is written by Kelvin Sherlock. Actually, the chat has informed me of that. But so, in fact, Jeremy in the chat has informed me of that. It wasn't just the nebulous chat. But okay. Anyway, yeah, that's it for me. And let's see. Quinn, yeah, have we gone to you? We haven't
Yes.
gone to you. Let's go to
Nope. Not yet. Yeah, I was just going to say also that I appreciate that our chat knows more about everything than we do. That is greatly appreciated.
It'd
Our
be hard
real-time,
not to.
Yes, well, yeah, the real-time fact-checking, especially this episode, has been extremely helpful. Yeah, so I actually do have retro news to talk about finally for once. So the infamous my parents' basement. It's a little bit of backstory. So I've talked over the years on the show about my parents' basement that has some number of boxes of all of my retro computer stuff, and it's just been sitting there for decades waiting for me to go and get it, and I finally did. It was impossible logistically to go get it while I was living in California, but now that I'm back here, it was difficult, but at least possible to go and get it. So I did, and cleaned out my dad's basement of all of that stuff, and it was a lot of fun because it was all boxed up in like 1991 or something, and I literally haven't seen any of it since. And I had no idea. I had a rough idea what was in there, but there was a lot of surprises, both good and bad, about what was in those boxes. The boxes themselves were also fun. So, like, one of them was a Sony, or rather an Ericsson microwave from 1989 box. One of them was the box for the PC2, which was, I finally figured out, my dad's first computer that he ever got for his veterinary clinic. It was an XT or an AT clone. I thought it was an actual IBM product because it had the logo was in that, horizontal bars IBM format, but in fact they were just copying the IBM logo. So it's some anonymous Asian clone called the PC2. Good luck Googling that. But it was some sort of DRAT clone. Anyway, so the box for that, a lot of fun boxes. So there was a lot of stuff in there that I knew I had. On the good surprises side, so I knew I had my Apple II Plus was in there with the monitor. I knew my 2GS was in there with the monitor. My 2GS has a RAM factor and a Sonic Blaster and a Transwarp in it. I knew that was in there. Monitor is in there. Let's see. I knew I had a Commodore 64 in there. That was actually given to me by an old friend from school who didn't want it anymore. So I've never used the Commodore. He just gave it to me, and I put it in the box with the stuff. And I've never turned it on, so I have no idea. I'm sure it works, but I've never tried it. So that's all the good news. There was a lot of fun stuff with the Commodore that I didn't know was in there. There was a 1571 disk drive as well as a 1541. There was a new in box Commodore dot matrix printer, like the 1208 or whatever Commodore printer, the basic dot matrix. Brand new in the box. I had no idea that was in there. There was a Super Snapshot cartridge and some other fun stuff like that. A lot of floppies. There was a homemade peripheral of some sort that goes in the user port. I have no idea what this thing does. It's just a circuit board covered in obviously amateur soldered wires. I'm a little scared to plug it in. I have no idea what it does. There's a 25 pin, DB25 connector coming out of it. No idea what it does. So it was probably assembled from a schematic in some magazine or something. But so that's all the good news. The bad news is, let's see, my Laser 12080X was not in there. I thought it was. I guess I sold it. I must have sold that. I don't remember doing that, but I guess I did. My 660 AV was not in there. I really thought it was. And my 2GS keyboard is gone. So I think I remember what happened actually when I moved to California. I took the 2GS keyboard and the 660 AV with me because it was my computer at the time. I mean, that was 1998, so it was still my active computer. And I always used the 2GS keyboard with the Mac because I didn't like any of the Mac keyboards from that era. I thought they were all oversized and felt like crap. The 2GS keyboard is so good. So very sadly, my 2GS keyboard is gone because I got rid of that machine down in California at some point. I don't know what I did with it, but it's gone and the keyboard went with it. So I'm gonna have to get a new 2GS keyboard, which those can be obtained, but it's sad that one was mine. It was the one that had my cooties on it that I had sat at that thing for thousands and thousands of hours. I spent all of the 90s sitting in front of that keyboard. So it's sad that it's gone, but so that was a real disappointment. And the other big disappointment is that the Commodore 64 had no monitor. And I don't know why. When my friend gave me the machine, he didn't give me the monitor. And I don't know why, because I know he had one. He had a 1702, I think. So hence my odyssey to locate a Commodore monitor. And holy cow, the prices on those have gone up. The Commodore monitors in particular, they're very popular with retro gamers, it turns out. So all of the ads, so I'm looking on eBay and Facebook Marketplace and Kijiji and Craigslist and all these things. They're all marketed to the retro gamers. Every time they show a picture of the monitor, they've got an NES plugged into it or a ColecoVision or something like that. So I guess they're popular with that crowd because they have a lot of inputs on them. They have the front inputs, which retro gamers really like. And they have a great picture. And they have the sound built in. So it's a great choice for retro console gaming. And so I think that crowd has driven up the prices on Commodore monitors substantially. So I did end up finding one. It gets here early this week, Wednesday. So 3 days from now, fingers crossed. It's shipping to me from Manitoba. So I have no idea if it's going to be in 28 pieces when it gets here. I've never shipped a CRT before, so I have no idea if this is going to work or not. It's in beautiful condition in the pictures, but who knows if it's going to survive. I hope he packed it well. And I paid more than I wanted to for it, but that's just what the market for Commodore monitors is right now, unfortunately. So, but I'm really excited about it. I've been saying recently that I'm Commodore curious, but I'm officially a Commodore owner. And I'm really excited about it. And I have mixed feelings. I mean, I'm from a good Apple family. Like, this kind of thing just isn't done. So it's exciting to explore a new computer that I have no nostalgia for. Like, I think that's what's interesting to me about it, is that here's all these games and all these programs and this whole system that I literally know nothing about. And I kind of have that feeling that you used to have back in the day when you got a brand new computer, because it was always a new operating system and a whole new set of software and a different keyboard, and everything was different. It's not like nowadays you upgrade your Mac and it's the same thing, just 10% better or whatever. Back then, a new computer was a whole new world, and I kind of have a bit of that feeling. So I'm weirdly excited to start this thing up and start playing with it. So cool. So yeah, all the stuff is here. I've got it in my basement. I'm trying to figure out where in my house to put it all. I'm kind of try to maybe dedicate a corner of my downstairs to it. I've got kind of a rec room downstairs, so I'll probably try to set up a big desk down there maybe and put all the machines on that. And it should be fun. So exciting retro news happening over here.
Very cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. Great. I think we have made it through all of our items and updates and eBay auctions. So that is it for this show. You can find the show notes for this and all the RCR shows at rcrpodcast.com. You can find lo-fi episodes and more via Gofa. Via Gopher at rcrpodcast.com. You can discuss the show in the forums at somewhere on vcfed.org. You can follow RCR on Mastodon at podcasts.social at RCR Podcast. You can join our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/RCR Podcast. You can send feedback to feedback@rcrpodcast.com. We are a member of the Throwback Network at throwbackreviews.com. And if you wish, please write a review on iTunes. It might help people find the show. And until next time,
Retrocompute.
Terrible.
Yeah. Nice.
So
excellent.
Quinn, I posted a link, Quinn, on Mastodon to the show, the live stream, and someone responded. They said, "Oh wow, is Quinn inside of her computer?" And I explained that you created a
Quinn is a little
soundproof
computer person.
box.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
your
yes.
your sound pad. Yes, I explained
Yes.
that. Yes, but she was like, "Is
Okay.
Quinn
Yeah,
inside
so
her computer?"
For anyone on the stream who's wondering, I'm sitting inside a foldable sound booth because I have a lot of reverb in my office and I record voiceover for my YouTube channel, and I can't manage to fix the reverb in this office no matter how many carpets and pillows and things I put in here. So I instead built myself a portable sound booth out of PVC pipe and cardboard, and it folds up and it goes in the closet when I'm not using it. But I happen to have it set up for this recording, which is why I'm sitting in a fancy box.
She's been traveling. Normally we have desktop Quinn. We got portable Quinn this time instead.
That's right.
That's right.
All right. Excellent. Well,
Cool.
yeah, thanks everyone for joining along and correcting our errors and providing dad jokes. We didn't say the joke about the Commodore, the fleet of Commodore monitors.
Oh, but that was good.
I appreciated it.
I appreciated it.
Jeremy's
Yes,
joke.
that was a
Yep.
good one. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, good. Well, see you hopefully sooner than the interval that went between these last two episodes. But anyway,
Who knows?
bye YouTube.
I think I've got some better availability. So
Excellent.
myself.